Looks like something's taking the skull apart. Pieces of it down here. That's too bad. Well, good afternoon. I'm drinking some black coffee, decaf, because I'm old and I don't sleep well at night. And I'm smoking Old Ironsides in my Missouri Meerschaum, not so stubby. And I'm lighting it with fancy matches from my witch friend. Put a spell on you. So, anytime you want to, remember, hashtag AskGribbs to ask the witch, and I will give you basically a direct conduit to the occult by asking my witch friend whatever you want to know. I'm pretty sure that she speaks daily with Aleister Crowley. So, as if that weren't disturbing enough, I have a harrowing tale to tell. I have lived through a terrifying experience. I have stood and gazed at the Skull Eaters right into their black, beady little eyes, and I have lived to tell the tale. You are just tuning in to the Gribbly's Folly Adventures. I have a place in the woods that I call the Bothy that is built on land that is not really, I don't know if I'm really even supposed to be out there, but we'll move on past that. I built it about 18 months ago. It's just a place for me to go and hang out, and throughout my time there I have found things. I found bones. I found dead things, and I hang them in the trees for fun. And it isn't until I have to explain it that I start realizing how weird that sounds. But you find a skull in the woods, right? And you got a stick fort, because that's basically what the Bothy is. By the way, a Bothy is a Scottish word that means a structure that is left open to any who may need it. Anybody that needs it can go in the structure, right? And I learned that word because Derek Tant put me onto Bothy Flake, the tobacco, and thought it would be cool to call my stick fort the Bothy. I'm 36, by the way, totally grown man, which is going to make the rest of the story even better. So I found a deer skull and I hung it up on a tree, just kind of like, well, what else are you going to do with it, right? And let's see what else. There was many bones that I found. I made a wind chime out of them. Because at that point, I sort of got the sense that other people were visiting the Bothy, and I thought it was kind of like a funny, practical joke kind of thing to do. And so I hung up my bone wind chimes. There was a little stone bobcat that I actually got at the witch store when I was there with my witch friend when she was here last year. And I put that in the Bothy because I was seeing bobcats on the trail cam that I keep. And so over time, these things have been messed with. It's been very clear. Someone came in. I had a collection of glass jars that I just found in the woods and hadn't packed out yet, and they smashed them. I had a concrete piece of concrete that was like a cylindrical piece of concrete that I used. I call it the anvil. I used it as like a work surface. It was just kind of handy. They were smashed on that. And anyway, so over time, it's been clear that the Bothy was visited by others, right? And I didn't know the intentions of these others. I did not know. I just called them the Skull Eaters because they kept taking the skull off the tree. And then I would find a new skull and put it up. And then, yeah. So, back and forth, back and forth. Well, the other day, right after I went out to do the spring Bothy remodel, in the video I just made, I went through all that. So, I had just remodeled the Bothy, right? And then I went out the next day to engage in some Bothy time, some relaxing, woods communing, devil breathing, basically meditation. I was just going to go out there and be by myself for a while. And I noticed all the things that you see in the intro to this video, which is that someone had been up to no good. Now, the day that I did the remodel, as I was leaving, I was on the usual trail, and I heard a group of young people, kids, you might say, up in the trees. There's sort of an embankment. And this is near the place where the trees have been chopped down, and I heard them up there. And it was a wet day, The ground was moist. I was camoed up. I was able to move pretty quietly, so I just didn't say much, didn't say anything, didn't shout out in the way of greeting, and approached. I just walked the trail, which led right by this place where they appeared to be congregating under some heavy brush. Not saying they were hiding, not saying they were up to anything, but when I got close, they suddenly went very quiet. They had seen me, and so I just kind of like nodded toward the trees where I knew they were and moved on. I had also been seeing some young men on my trail cam, and I won't show any pictures of anybody. I mean, I've this spring. Is it spring yet? It's not spring yet. This winter, I have seen my first people ever on the trail cam. And some of them are adults and some of them have been kids. So that's kind of interesting. But long story short, I went back out the next day to be by myself in the bothy. Things were kind of crazy here at home. My 3-year-old was drumming on pots and pans. I went back out and I was doing my devil breathing, and I had almost reached enlightenment when I heard a rustling in the bushes. And I looked up, and one of these kids appeared like a ghost from the woods and started approaching the bothy. And I thought, well, this is going to be kind of interesting, because I was pissed. I was a little pissed. Like, you carve your initials on the yeah. Anyway, I mean, not the least. The skull that I've been trying to preserve was smashed, and anyway. So that was going to be interesting. So I expected him to, when he noticed I was there, run like hell, right? He did not, and in fact, he was actually looking for me, and so he kind of like approached the bothy and like peered in. You know, after the remodel, it's hard to see in there. So I said hello, and he jumped out of his skin. Not really, but I'm always pleased when someone walks by the bothy and they don't see me at first. So I said hello. He said hello back, and then what do you know? He just made himself at home. He just came around and came in the door, and I was sitting there against a tree, and he just came up and shook my hand and told me his name, and I was like, "What? Like, I thought you were some kind of like cowardly skull-eating teenager. Like, I'm not accustomed to people actually looking me in the eye when I talk to them. That's why I hang out in the woods all the time." So he was like, "Is this your place?" And I was like, "No, not really, you know, sort of. I've improved it." That's what I said. I hung up a bird feeder. I come out here to watch the birds, which is not untrue. And so he was like, "Oh, cool." And then he bolted. He was just like he got this question answered, and he was, boom, through the hole and off through the woods. I did notice that he checked his 6 on his way out, which impressed me. But in general, I was like, well, that was kind of interesting. You know, he actually, I hadn't put it together that this kid had maybe been one of the skull eaters. But I was like, you know, surely he's not up to no good, because he had the balls to shake my hand and look me in the eye, right? And then I go back to my devil breathing, and then once more I was just on the cusp of spiritual awakening when suddenly 5 boys are approaching the bothy through the woods, and I thought, you know, this might be a little situation here. I might have to do some diplomacy, because they might ask difficult questions like, "Who are you and what the hell are you doing in these woods?" Also, for those of you just tuning in, I'm like a fine, upstanding member of my neighborhood, right? Nobody knows that I'm playing in a fort in the woods. I don't really publicize that, because again, I don't really know that I'm supposed to be out there, and I figure it's better to ask forgiveness if I'm caught than to ask permission and be denied and then get caught later anyway. So anyway, all these kids were coming up, and you know, I know most of their parents, and I was like, uh-oh, this might be a little awkward. So I went out of the bothy to greet them, and they were armed to the teeth, man. They all had like knives, sheath knives, and machetes, and an axe, and they ranged in age from like maybe 9 to 13, and there were 5 of them. And so they were like, "So this is your place, huh?" And I was like, all right. And then I realized, you guys somehow you knew I was out here. You sent a scout to find me and then report back, and now you're all coming to meet me. Of course it's my place. Like, who am I really kidding? But But I was, I played my cards really close to the vest, and they were like, yeah, so, did you know there were skulls here? And I was like, yeah, I did. I found them in the woods, and I hung them up. And they were like, oh, yeah, we took them. No apology. They're not even sheepish about it. But they had such as like an air of Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn. Well, Tom Sawyer was a sociopath. So let's let Huck Finn. Because if you read the Tom Sawyer was not a good kid. I don't know why he's held up as some sort of boyish role model. Because anyway, so more of like a Huck Finn, but also like definitely a Stranger Things vibe going on with these kids. And it was very hard to be mad at them because I also pictured them, if they were that timid just coming to talk to me, then like what must it have been like for them to find those skulls in the first place? But they were like, yeah, we took them, and then new skulls appeared. So we figured there was somebody like still using this place, so we probably shouldn't take their skulls anymore. I was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't. I forgot to mention, they led with the question, is this your fort? Yeah, so this adulting thing, I'm not really on it yet. I feel good having met them. We conversed for a while. We talked about their knives. We talked about all their weaponry. I talked about maybe how they should consider that weaponry might not get them out of a bear attack, because that's why ostensibly they were carrying their weaponry. I was like, you got a knife like this? Yeah, a bear's got like 4 of those on one paw. Anyway, they reminded me so much of myself when I was that age that I didn't want to be, I was just like, hey, maybe don't cut down like old growth trees, okay? Like maybe don't do that. And they were like, yeah, we don't cut down any trees. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And they were like, okay, but never big ones. I'm like, okay, that's, fair enough. And so then they like, there was like this awkward pause, and they all kind of looked at each other, and they were like, we opened your bomb. And I was like, what? And the ammo can that I had been keeping my birdseed in. Keep my birdseed in an ammo can so the bears won't get into it. They thought it was a bomb. And apparently they had been working up the nerve for several weeks to actually open it. And they opened it. They took it to the creek to open it because they thought it was going to explode and wanted to open it underwater. And then they were very disappointed to find that it was just birdseed. But long story short, I feel that now we have met face to face and had a productive conversation. I feel that I will be left alone in the future now that they know that there is someone out there using the Bothy. It would have been pretty easy to deduce that, given the fact that the bird feeder kept filling itself back up. But whatever, I'm not going to... Anyway, the real reason that they're going to be nice to me is that I let them know, as a responsible adult, I felt it was my job to let them know I know where their fort is too. It's not in the worst position ever, but it's not in the best one either. And I stumbled upon it when I was looking around where they cut down their trees. That's the number one thing. If you're going to build a fort using, trees, go far away to source your trees if you're going to be cutting down trees, because obviously you lose the element of stealth. There's a bunch of like clear cutting, and then there's like this one stand of trees that hasn't been touched. Yeah, that's probably where the fort is. Hang on, I got to relight. So, as a gesture of goodwill, but also to let them know I'm on to them. I know where they hang out. As a gesture of goodwill, though, mostly, I am going to leave them a care package. They were so impressed with my ammo can. They were like, "That's a real ammo can?" I was like, "Well, yeah, you can get them at the." Yes, it's real. Yes, ammo exists. I forget when you're a kid and you've like never seen a gun, how crazy these things seem. But like, yes, ammunition exists, and they put it in cans that are called ammo cans, right? So they were very impressed with it, and I think it's a really good idea for them to have one to keep their stuff in so that the bears don't eat them. So I have a spare ammo can, and I'm going to fill it with some supplies, which I will detail here. Okay, well, I'm here in the lair of the Skull Eaters. Nice little space. A little small. They've already started some construction there. It's pretty nice. It's up on top of a hill. I got good views. Not too private though. Well, let's get to this care package. Okay, so our first ingredient, of course, is brown sugar Pop-Tarts. Throwing in a little Gerber single piece multi-tool there, and some of the stuff that, sorry, this thing's trying to fall over. Pipe Smoking Board Gamer sent me this headlamp that's going in, waterproof matches, knife sharpener from Schrade, some toe warmers, waterproof notebook, and a pen, and some glow sticks here, paracord, an old compass that probably still works. That's north, right? Yeah, that's north. Poncho, some Slim Jims, and last but not least, I found this at the used bookstore a while back and haven't even opened it, so I figured I'd pass it along. Stick that all right in there. Okay, so that's it. It's a pretty wet day. It's going to be wet tomorrow and cold. I doubt they'll find that for a few days, but I'm going to go check on the bothy. And you know, just hope they didn't wreck anything between then and now, and if they did, well, I'll come get my Pop-Tarts back. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind. Well, this is interesting. You know how I was wondering about what to do with all that material that I gathered? Looks like they decided to do something for me. Huh. Huh.